Welcome to On the Chain.
So there was some more commentary, and I want to get into this Warren Davidson, Chris Larsen thing, and just seeing some additional commentary that kind of dropped here. And I'm finding this is healthy. It's always healthy to have conversation, always healthy to have some discourse, and then what? Then we learn from each other, right? So one of the things, and Chip and I have covered this over the past number of videos, but I thought it was just there's just a little bit more, going on. And so one of the things, this goes back to something that Chris Larsen had said, this op-ed calling for the restructuring of Bitcoin, and then you have those that are mining Bitcoin. They say, look, we don't need your involvement in restructuring. We kind of like it the way it is. And, then he said, well, if you're not going to do it if you're not going to do it, maybe it needs to be done through coercion. And so that's where this whole thing came down. And so the other day, Davidson was saying, if not in statute, then with coercion. If you don't see an attack on proof of work as an attack on Bitcoin, you understand neither. It's an attack on the fundamental architecture. Solana offers proof of history as a distinctive alternative. Numerous others offer proof of stake. So the point that Davidson is bringing up, and it's interesting that he's having this conversation with Chris Larsen, he's actively been involved in the digital asset space for a while. Davidson is a little bit newer to the digital asset space, but serving in Congress. And so now they're having this conversation in the public square, which is Twitter, because Twitter is the public square. And so then he gets into, how integral is proof of work to Bitcoin. Well, it's in the abstract. And we talked about, how that's key. I thought it was interesting here because, Larsen came back and he said, this is the exact opposite of what I'm advocating for. I hold Bitcoin. I want to be successful in the future. I'm being pragmatic about what's going on. When ETH completes the switch, Bitcoin is so here's a question. So now why are you going to bring up Ethereum? Because when is Ethereum going to make the switch? Are they going to complete it? Are they going to reduce their gas fees? Because their gas fees are outlandish on the Ethereum gas fees. So are they going to complete the switch? And is it relevant to full energy usage? And, then you get into the climate. So he gets into here, big institutions providing most of the liquidity have climate commitment. So now the big institution gets back to what Gary Gensler has been talking about with the SEC, wanting to be focused and hold corporations, big institutions, he wants to put their feet to the fire on potential climate acknowledgement. So things are getting a little bit out of hand, a little crazy. And so this is one of the points I think that, Chris Larsen is kind of slipping into that crazy, space when we're talking about liquidity. Okay, let's focus on liquidity. What about the climate commitment? Why are you getting in there? Gens is laser focused on climate. Now I don't know, GENZ, Gen Z. I was thinking maybe he's got a nickname. I think Chris Larsen might have a nickname for Gensler. He calls him Gens. Hey Gens, what's up, Gens? But I think he's referring to Gen Z, because Gen Z is laser focused on climate. I believe that a long term of updating the code of either a low energy validation method or even code that incents miners to remove carbon. Now, how are you going to incentivize a miner to remove carbon? How Now, a miner is mining. A miner doesn't necessarily know how to remove carbon from the atmosphere. And so this whole thing is just a little bit outlandish. I mean, you can have these ideas and throw it out there. But so, just just kind of goes on and on and on, you know. So, and then obviously there was some commentary from the community, but I just thought it was just interesting looking at Chris Larsen's comments here. And, I looked through it. I'm like, man, how is a miner going to remove carbon? That whole idea, but then, is Gen Z really laser focused only on climate? Is that what's critical here, to hold institutions to you're going to get into you're having a financial conversation. So this is relevant, to the SEC, and what the SEC is doing, because the SEC being extremely interrogative to, the corporations, and just out of hand. It's just a little bit out of hand, That's it. So yesterday, the SEC says crypto platforms that hold customers' stashes must treat them as their own assets and liabilities. This is my money, not their money. So now, could you imagine, JP Morgan, you need to treat your customers' holdings in your bank as your assets, as your liabilities. No, these are my assets. They don't belong to the exchange. I didn't turn them over to the exchange. These are my assets that I hold in my wallet. They are custodying for it. They're protecting that asset for me, whether it's Coinbase or Bitrue or Binance or Gemini or whomever it is. The SEC doesn't get to tell the exchange that they need to hold that now as their asset and their liability. Who said that? How does the SEC make law? The SEC doesn't make law. The SEC follows the law. They can take the law and create some pathways and say, based on the law, this is why we're acting such. At what point did we elect representatives of the SEC that are appointed or hired? When did we elect them to write law? We never did. We never elected them to write law. This is out of control. Congress needs to hold them accountable for their overreach, because we did not elect them. We did not elect the SEC. They don't have the power nor the authority to write law. The SEC said there are unique legal, regulatory, and tech risks that could have big impact on. Yeah, you know what the risk is? The SEC crushing them. That's what it's all about. And it's insane. So here we are, we gather, right? And we talk about this and we dissect it and we workshop it and we try to understand and we learn, from all of ourselves here, as we're learning from this direction, and we start piecing the roadmap together of where people stand, right? We have the big platforms, we have big companies that are moving in a certain direction. Some of the big companies have adhered to a certain ideology that could be destructive and is detrimental to the expansion of the crypto space. Then we have certain powers that are elected into government that are then, either doing or not doing. And those that aren't doing need to be removed. They need to be removed. So man, it's crazy, but I'm still very optimistic. Why? Because crypto is the future. And the reason why there's so many people against it within government and within, the SEC and elsewhere is because crypto has hit a nerve. Because if crypto was irrelevant, then nobody would speak up. You wouldn't have any executive orders. You wouldn't have them trying to force this into the infrastructure bill. You wouldn't have the EU voting on it. You wouldn't have all of these players trying to get their piece and trying to slow it down, because they know that crypto is moving faster and faster and faster in a specific direction, and they are losing the narrative. They're losing their control. One of the things that Alex Mashinsky had told us, he's the CEO of Celsius. When he came for an interview, he said that the titans of tomorrow that come out of the ash heap of everything that we've seen are going to be different than the titans that have led for decades. The banking CEOs and all that banking cabal infrastructure is going to look drastically different as we move forward.
Are you down with OTC? Please like, subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when the next video drops.